In this video, we're going to talk about the donation system. So the donation system was designed to solve a couple of problems, the most important of which was one we've all run into playing Bethesda games, which is by mid to late game you tend to be so rich that you really just don't need to loot anymore. In my opinion, looting is one of the best parts of the game. It's so fun to go killing things and exploring and trying to find new treasure, but most of the stuff ends up being things you don't need anymore. But now we've got kind of a resource dump, a place we can use all of those extra items by giving them to the settlers to help upgrade their cities. So that is one problem it solves. The other is for people who want to try out and use this new settler built cities, but not actually have to get involved in workshop mode. So for those of you who like building and like the idea that you can help out these settlements a little bit, for example, you can see that Sanctuary is short on water. You could easily just go in and build them water pumps. But someone who really despises the workshop mode might not want to do that. So instead, they can head to the city planner's desk and just dump in a bunch of extra bottles of water that they've been finding while they've been romping around the Commonwealth. And so you access that by going to the supplies and choose manage. And then you choose this donate supplies option, which will bring up a container and you can basically dump anything you like in it. Now, if you've got the maintenance option turned on and the difficulty options, this screen might be slightly different, but the same data will still be here and you'll still have that same button. So I'm going to talk about what happens when you give them different supplies. So the first thing on the screen here, upgrade scrap collected. I've talked about that in the upgrades menu or in the upgrades video, but one thing I didn't mention in that video was the fact that scrap is tiered. There are 3 tiers. The simplest stuff like wood and steel are the lowest tier, and then things like fiber optics and nuclear material are the highest tier, and depending on the tier of the junk, so the value of it generally, the percentage that it applies will be higher. So you'll need a lot more wood than you would, say, ballistic fiber to upgrade a settlement. So donating the supplies, what that does is exclusively tells them that they can use that junk for upgrading. They will also use stuff in your workbench, but if you don't want them to use stuff in your workbench ever, just come fill up the scrap collected meter by donating the stuff manually, and that will ensure that they only use the stuff that you've donated to them. The next thing they'll make use of are chems and alcohol, which will give a happiness boost to your settlers. And then we have food and water, giving them extra food and water. They can store up to 3 days worth per settler. So they can have a 3-day backup supply of food and water for each settler. So if you had 10 settlers, you could store up to 30 food and 30 water. And the stored food and water, what it does is acts like kind of a buffer so that if dynamic needs, for example, pushes your food and water meters low, they would start eating the food and water so that the meter could stay high until you get a chance to come back and take care of the issues. Or if you're not interested in building and you don't want to take care of the issues, you could just keep donating food and water, and that would work for the meters. So you can keep up to a 3-day supply, and that number of days will be something you'll be able to improve with a future unlock building that's coming in one of the patches. So there's some new buildings coming that you guys are going to get access to that are going to change some of these numbers around. The next thing there is the Armory equipment rating, and that is increased by donating ammunition, weapons, and armor. So you now be able to dump off all of those extra things, especially the stuff you find in piles and piles on all of the raiders you'll be slaying. So giving that stuff to your settlement will give you a defense boost. Now, originally what I wanted to do was have all donated equipment actually get equipped to the settlers, but the code to support that just isn't there right now. There's limitations in the engine, and the only way to do it appropriately would require either a ton of manual intervention. So if you've used any of the Armory type mods people have put out, you'll know that without the script extender, it requires a lot of manual finagling, and that's just not the type of system I want to introduce in some settlements, something that requires that much manual intervention. So if by some luck we get a more advanced piece of information or scripting out there that doesn't require the script extender, I will definitely change this so that it actually equips the settlers. But for now, dumping equipment can supply up to 3 defense per settler. So you'll be able to dump all that extra equipment you've got, and as more settlers come in, they will virtually make use of it, and it will boost your defense rating. So anything you donate will get basically gone. You can't get it back. So know that anything you donate is not something you can recover. It doesn't get put in your workshop, doesn't go into your settler's inventory. It's all a virtual system that you're donating to. So know that you can't get it back, and be sure that whatever you're giving them, you don't need. There are exceptions to that rule. For example, if you meet the stored food and water max, they will give back the extra. If there is extra scrap, so if they reach 100% for that level, all the extra scrap will get thrown into your workbench. And then anything you give them that they're not supposed to use, like holotapes or quest items, they'll give them right back. They'll put them right back into your inventory. So you don't have to be too afraid of donating stuff. Just know that whatever you do, they do keep forever. So if you accidentally give them your favorite gun, it's gone. So it might be a good habit to get into, to make a save before you start donating, in case you get trigger happy with donating things. And so basically this is a donation system to allow you to have extra uses for all that stuff you're finding, so that you can continue to collect and loot forever. If you haven't tried out Salvage Beacons, which is one of the first mods I ever released for Fallout, that will allow you to actually dump a bunch of stuff in a container out in the Commonwealth and have it sent off to your settlements. And I am going to do an update to Salvage Beacons to add an option to integrate with some settlements and do things directly as donations, so that you'll be able to send donations from across the Commonwealth. So I have told you guys many times I plan on integrating Salvage Beacons into some settlements so that it's part of the same mod, and that will happen eventually. I have a lot more plans for Salvage Beacons, but I want to do the donation adjustment right away. So that's going to be something I patch in very soon to Salvage Beacons. So I highly recommend you guys use it. It's a very, very companion mod for some settlements right now. All right, guys, that should cover all of your questions on the donation system. If I missed anything, again, please go to the Sim Settlements forums. I would be happy to answer additional questions for you. But on the next video, we're going to start talking about some of the new systems introduced to help you guys manage your cities.